She said it while checking herself in the mirror, one hand adjusting an earring, the other smoothing the front of her dress. "Don't come to my birthday party," she said, not looking at me. "Just help pay for it, please. I feel embarrassed going with you." The room smelled like perfume and the faint citrus of the cleaner we'd used on the counter that morning. Outside the window, traffic moved in slow waves, tires hissing against the road. I stood behind her, holding my phone, watching her reflection avoid mine. I paused just long enough to make sure my voice wouldn't change. "I understand," I said. She smiled, relieved, like a problem had solved itself. "Thank you," she replied. "It's just, you know how it is." I didn't know how it was, but I nodded anyway. "My name is Daniel. I'm 32 years old. I work as an operations supervisor at a mid-sized distribution center, a job built on logistics, timing, and keeping things from falling apart when people don't notice the work underneath. I've learned how to stay calm when things get uncomfortable. I've also learned how often calm gets mistaken for permission. We'd been together a year and a half, long enough to share routines, short enough that everything still felt slightly provisional. She worked in marketing, fast-paced, image-conscious, always aware of who was watching. She had a habit of narrating her own life out loud, turning small moments into something performative. I'd always been the opposite. Quiet, deliberate, content to stay just outside the spotlight. The comment didn't come out of nowhere. It landed on top of a series of small remarks I'd been stacking away without realizing it. Jokes about how I dressed. Suggestions about where I should stand in group photos. A passing comment once, half laughing, that I didn't fit the vibe of her friends. I told myself it was nothing. That adults compromise. That not every thought needs to be dignified with a reaction. She left shortly after, heels clicking down the hallway, phone already in her hand. The door closed softly behind her. The apartment went quiet in that particular way it does when someone leaves expecting you to stay exactly where you are. I sat at the kitchen table and stared at the receipt on my phone. My share of the party expenses she'd sent earlier that day. Venue, drinks, decorations. I transferred the money without hesitation. The confirmation ping felt too loud in the silence. A memory drifted in without asking. A dinner months earlier with her friends, one of them asking how we met. She'd answered quickly, brightly, while I smiled and nodded beside her. Someone joked that I was mysterious. She laughed. "He's just quiet," she said. Not unkindly, but not proudly either. That evening I cooked for one. The pan hissed when oil hit the heat. Garlic burned just slightly. I ate standing up, then washed the dish and listened to the water run longer than necessary. The apartment smelled clean and empty. I didn't feel angry. That surprised me. What I felt was a kind of clarity settling in, the way it does when you finally stop explaining something to yourself. I went to the bedroom and opened the closet, pushed aside jackets, found the small envelope I'd tucked behind a box months earlier. Inside was something I'd been planning quietly, carefully, without announcement. Not because I expected praise, but because I wanted to give her something that matched what I thought we were building. I sat on the edge of the bed and held it there, turning it over in my hands. The fabric felt smooth, expensive, thoughtful. If she was embarrassed to be seen with me, I wasn't going to argue her out of it. I wasn't going to demand reassurance or stage a confrontation before her party. Instead, I made a different decision. I put the envelope back, closed the closet, and turned off the light. Outside, the sky darkened, streetlights blinking on one by one. Somewhere across town, her birthday party was starting without me. And quietly, without drama, I began planning her gift. I didn't go out that night. I stayed in the apartment and let the hours pass the way they wanted to. The party across town might as well have been happening in another city. I turned off the TV, opened a window, and listened to the building breathe. Pipes shifting, a neighbor laughing briefly, then quiet again. The air carried a faint smell of rain and hot asphalt, the kind that settles in your lungs and makes you slow down. I laid the envelope on the table and opened it again, careful, like the contents might bruise if I rushed. It wasn't extravagant. It wasn't flashy. It was specific. Something she'd mentioned once, offhand, months earlier, during a walk when the light was soft and she wasn't performing for anyone. I'd remembered it because remembering felt like love. I'd planned it because planning felt like commitment. My phone buzzed twice. A notification from my bank confirming the transfer. Another from her group chat. Photos starting to roll in. I didn't open them. I set the phone face down and kept my hands busy. At work, when systems go down, you don't stare at the alert. You stabilize what you can control. A memory drifted in while I paced the room. Her birthday last year, smaller, quieter. She'd been happy then, genuinely. We'd eaten takeout on the floor, laughed about nothing. She'd kissed my cheek and said, "You make things easy." I'd taken that as praise. I understand now that easy can mean invisible. I showered, letting the water run hotter than usual, steam fogging the mirror until my reflection softened. The scent of soap cut through the room, clean and grounding. When I stepped out, the clock read later than I expected. Time had moved without consulting me. I put on a shirt and sat again, envelope in front of me, rehearsing nothing. No speech. No reveal. Just a sequence of events I could stand behind. Around 10, her text started. Short updates at first. "It's fun. Music's loud. You should see this place." I replied once. "Have a good night." That was it. By 11, the tone shifted. "Where are you? Everyone keeps asking." I didn't answer. Not out of spite. Out of choice. I wrapped the gift and placed it carefully into a bag. The paper made a soft, reassuring sound as I folded it. The kind of sound that means things are aligned. I set it by the door and sat on the couch, lights low, letting the apartment hold me. I thought about Marcus from work, older, meticulous, drinks coffee black and never stays late for office birthdays. He once told me, quietly, that respect isn't loud. It's consistent. I'd nodded then without fully understanding. I do now. Close to midnight, the phone rang. I watched it vibrate across the table, the name lighting up the room. I didn't answer on the first ring. I breathed. On the second, I picked up. Her voice was brittle around the edges. "Why aren't you here?" she asked. Not "Are you okay?" Not "Did something happen?" Just the absence. "I told you I wouldn't come," I said. "That's not what I meant," she replied quickly. Music thumped in the background. Laughter. Glass clinking. "I just needed help paying. I didn't think you'd actually stay away." "I heard you," I said. "I stayed away." A pause. Then frustration. "You're being dramatic." I looked at the gift by the door, at the quiet room, at the steady hum of the refrigerator. "I'm being exact," I said. She hung up without saying goodbye. I didn't feel triumphant. I felt settled. There's a difference. I picked up the bag, opened the door, and stepped into the hallway. The air smelled like cleaner and old paint. The elevator took its time. Outside, the night was cool, forgiving. I started the car and pulled away, not toward the party, but toward something I'd decided earlier. If this was going to end in tears, it wouldn't be because I raised my voice. It would be because I finally stopped shrinking. I didn't go to the party. I went somewhere quieter. The cafe near the river was still open, lights low, chairs half stacked like they were already preparing for morning. I sat by the window with a cup of coffee I didn't really want, watching reflections ripple across the glass as cars passed. The gift bag rested at my feet, upright, patient. The place smelled like roasted beans and damp coats. No music loud enough to drown out thought. That felt intentional. I checked my phone once. Missed calls. Messages stacking up in uneven bursts. Why are people asking where you are? This is embarrassing. I didn't mean it like that. I let the screen go dark again. A memory drifted in while I stared out at the river. Standing beside her at a work event months earlier, her introducing me as Daniel, then quickly pivoting to talk about her own role, her projects, her wins. Someone had asked what I did. She answered for me. I'd smiled, grateful at the time, thinking she was helping. Looking back, it felt more like erasure dressed as efficiency. My coffee went cold. I didn't mind. Around midnight, the call stopped. Silence replaced urgency, and I recognized that shift. It wasn't relief she felt now. It was uncertainty. When control slips even slightly, it makes people restless. I drove home slowly, streets nearly empty, traffic lights cycling through colors for no one. The apartment building greeted me with its familiar hum. I didn't turn on the overhead lights. Just a lamp in the corner, enough to soften the edges. I set the gift bag on the table again and sat across from it, elbows resting on my knees, breathing steady. The door opened close to 1 in the morning. She came in loud, not intentionally, just careless. Shoes kicked off. Keys dropped. The smell of alcohol and sweet perfume filled the room, clashing with the clean stillness I'd left behind. She froze when she saw me sitting there. "Oh," she said. "You're home." "I live here," I replied. She scoffed, defensive already. "Don't start." "I'm not," I said. She glanced around, noticing the quiet, the lamp, the bag on the table. "What's that?" "Your birthday gift," I said. Her expression softened for half a second. "Hope, maybe." "So you did plan something," she said, as if that proved something. "Yes," I said. "I did." She dropped onto the couch, rubbing her temples. "Tonight was a mess," she said. "People kept asking about you." I didn't know what to say. I watched her carefully. The words landed heavier than she realized. "You could have said the truth," I said. "That you didn't want me there." Her head snapped up. "That's not what I meant." "It's what you said," I replied. She stood, pacing now, heels clicking against the floor. "You're twisting it." "I just didn't want awkward energy. My friends don't really get you." I thought of all the times I'd adjusted, softened, stayed quiet to make rooms easier for her. "I wasn't there to be understood," I said. "I was there to be with you." She laughed, sharp. "Why are you making this such a big deal?" "It was my birthday. And I helped pay for it," I said calmly. "I respected your request." Her mouth opened, then closed. She looked at the bag again. "So what's this supposed to be?" she asked. "Some kind of apology." "No," I said. "It's a goodbye." The words settled between us. Heavy but exact. Her face changed. Not anger now, but fear. "You're breaking up with me?" "Over this." "Over what it represents," I said. "Being asked to fund something I wasn't allowed to belong to." She stepped closer, voice dropping. "You could have just talked to me." "I did," I said. "You didn't hear it." Silence stretched. The city outside murmured faintly through the window. She reached for the gift bag, then stopped herself, as if touching it might make this real. "I didn't think you'd actually leave," she said quietly. I nodded once. "I did." She sank back onto the couch, hands covering her face. Her shoulders started to shake, breath hitching. The tears came without drama, without volume. Just the sound of someone realizing too late that they'd misjudged what was at stake. I didn't move to comfort her. Not because I was cold, but because comfort now would have been dishonest. I picked up my jacket from the chair. "I'm going to stay somewhere else tonight," I said. She didn't look up. As I opened the door, the apartment behind me felt different. Lighter, but not empty. Outside, the night air was cool, steady, carrying the distant sound of traffic and something else I hadn't felt in a while. Space. And for the first time that evening, I knew exactly where I stood. I spent the night at my sister's place, a small apartment that always smells faintly of coffee grounds and clean laundry. She works as a physical therapist, wakes early, moves carefully through the world. She didn't ask for details when I showed up past midnight. She just handed me a blanket and nodded toward the couch. That was enough. Morning came quietly. Pale light through the blinds. The city easing back into motion. I lay there listening to footsteps in the hallway, the clink of a spoon against a mug, my own breathing steady and unhurried. For the first time in weeks, my chest felt open, not braced. She called once before noon. I let it go to voicemail. The message was brief, tight with restraint. "We need to talk. Last night got out of hand." I didn't replay it. I didn't need to. I knew the script well enough to recite it from memory. By afternoon, practical things took over. I stopped by the apartment while she was out to collect a few essentials. Clothes, my laptop, the notebook I keep by the bed. The place smelled like the night before, sweet and stale. I moved through it without urgency, noticing how easily my things separated from hers when I stopped pretending they were the same. At the table, the gift bag sat where I'd left it, untouched. I didn't open it. I didn't take it with me. It wasn't a bargaining chip. It was a decision already made. Back outside, the air carried the metallic bite of early winter. I walked instead of driving, letting the cold keep me present. The city sounded different when I wasn't rushing to manage anyone else's expectations. Traffic softer, voices less sharp, my own footsteps measured and sure. She texted again that evening. "I'm sorry. I didn't mean to hurt you." I read it once and put the phone down. Sorry can be honest. It can also be late. What matters is what changes after. Over the next few days, consequences arrived quietly. Friends checked in, cautiously. A couple tried to soften the story, suggesting misunderstandings, miscommunication. I listened without arguing. Clarity doesn't need defending. At work, Marcus, who drinks his coffee black and never attends office parties, noticed I'd stopped volunteering to absorb problems that weren't mine. He nodded once, approving, and went back to his spreadsheet. She asked to meet. I agreed, public place, daylight. We sat across from each other with cups growing cold between us. She talked about pressure, about image, about how she hadn't realized what her words sounded like. I believed her. And I still stood. I don't want a relationship where I have to pay to be invisible, I said, evenly. She stared at the table, then back at me. I didn't think it was that bad. I did, I replied. And I stopped ignoring that. There was no explosion. No plea. Just a quiet acceptance settling in, uneven and sad, but real. We parted without promises. That night, alone again, I cooked for myself and ate at the table. Steam rose from the plate. The apartment smelled like garlic and oil and something clean beneath it. I washed the dish and let the water run until the sound matched my breathing. I thought about birthdays and gifts and the stories people tell themselves when convenience looks like love. I thought about how often embarrassment gets mislabeled as honesty. I thought about the cost of staying quiet to keep rooms comfortable, and how high that cost becomes when you pay it long enough. I turned off the lights and stood by the window, watching streetlights blink on one by one. The city kept moving. So did I. I chose my dignity quietly.